Ultra MK podcast, where together we are reversing the narrative. And on today's show, we have a returning guest who's coming back to share information with us and to expand on her life's work and life's mission. We have Cathy O'Brien. And for those who don't know who Cathy is an MK Ultra survivor and has committed the rest of her life to helping the public understand what has been done to not only her, but many different people under our government's control and through different operations that our government has been involved in. So we are super grateful for Cathy O'Brien and all of the work that she's doing. And I really am proud to have her on today's show. So don't go far, hang out because we're going to be sharing some great information with you. It's going to be a little dark at times, but hang in there because we're going to bring some light on the subject as well. So stay tuned.
That is our obligation, to inform and alert the American people, to make certain that they possess all the facts that they need and understand them as well, the perils, the prospects, the purposes of our program, and the choices that we face.
Hi, Cathy. It's so nice to see you again.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just amazing how God works sometimes when He brings people together and to introduce people who never in a million years you think that you would meet them, and but through certain common interests, common missions that we might have, that we get a chance to meet each other. And I'm so thankful. In fact, I watched the documentary that you and your late husband Mark put together called Trance just the other night because I knew that this interview was going to happen because I really wanted to dig into your life's work and the mission and the things that happened to you. And I just thought to myself, Cathy O'Brien to me is a national treasure
Aw.
because the things that she went through and was exposed to, I feel that although times were extremely dark and painful for her, God was going to prepare her for something much more beautiful, that the story was going to go from dark to light, and that He was going to use you, protecting you to get out of that. And He used your husband, Mark, obviously to help you get out of that physically. But the story is just an amazing story that encourage all people to learn about your story because for many years, people trusted their government. They trusted a political party, or they voted for a candidate, or they've been paying crazy amounts of tax dollars, not even realizing that the people that they were giving their hard-earned money to were using it in a way to affect them negatively for their own ideology, their own religion, their own control and power structure. So I just wanted to share that with you today, and I'm just forever grateful to know you. And I know that you've been really busy working with other survivors in the country. So are you able to share with us and the audience what kind of work you've been doing lately?
Yes, I can. As a survivor of CIA MK Ultra mind control, I've been speaking out for over 35 years on the subject, especially healing from it, because people didn't realize that we have within us the capacity to heal. We all have been conditioned for generations to look outside ourselves to big government, big pharma, big tech, big cult to cult religion to tell us how to live our lives when we have been blessed with that truth within us all along, and we have forgot that. We have forgot the resiliency of body, mind, and spirit. We have forgot that we have such an amazing immune system ability to heal. I'm especially excited about our brains. Our brains have been made perfect. We have so much more capacity than we think. You know, we need to expand it and use our brilliant minds. We have been blessed with so much. And
Right.
ultimately, that's what I've been speaking out on so much is after 35 years, I haven't been triggered back in. My story hasn't changed. Truth is absolute. And I'm living proof that we can heal from within ourselves. And when we do, we find that who we are, our life's purpose, has been within us all along. It's right there protected. It's divinely protected so that whatever happens to us in life isn't who we are. Who we are is right there, and it's waiting to be freed, waiting to be able to, align with the divine, give God the glory, be able to live the love we are, and start living our life's purpose. No matter what dark evil has encroached on our lives, it doesn't have any place in the reality of who we are. The strength that we have within is it's so amazing, and it's encouraging now as people are waking up to
Yeah.
realize that child sex trafficking has become one of the most lucrative businesses in the world. This
Right.
has happened throughout my lifetime. I was used in child sex trafficking myself. I was born in 1957 in Muskegon, Michigan. I mean, that's a long time ago to be waiting for people to wake up and embrace the truth of what's going on. Now
Yeah.
they're seeing it. And as they're looking at this dark reality, if they're finally realizing that we share this planet with a very dark, negative energy force evil, we have all the power. It's up to us to be able to make that difference. And waiting a lifetime for this, it's so good that people are finally ready to embrace the truth and know how they too can stand strong regardless of what's imposed on us in life.
It's so true, Kathy. And for the viewers, I really want to bring you up to speed with Kathy's background. There's not a better way, I think, than just to share a quick trailer of the documentary film that she had put together called Trance, just to kind of give you some context of her story, so that way she doesn't have to relive and tell the entire story again. Because I think is a very well done documentary, but this is just the trailer. I just want to show the trailer to that. So just bear with me 1 second here. I'm going to share it.
It was so hard to come running out of a hell that nobody believed existed. My name is Cathy O'Brien, and I'm a survivor of MK Ultra mind control. The MK Ultra program was to ultimately control the minds of the population for implementing what Adolf Hitler first termed the New World Order. When girls reached age 30, they were murdered or they were sacrificed. I was going to be killed as well. I was to go out in a blaze of glory and be burned alive. I'm so fortunate that an intelligence insider who saw the kind of corruption that was going on in the highest levels of government decided to take action and rescued me and saved my life so that we could begin to expose what was being done.
I just think it's so important for people who are just hearing the name for the very first time, Kathy O'Brien, for you to take some time to go out and explore who she is by watching her documentary, but also that's going to lead you to some books that she has published. And I found that when I watched the documentary is really interesting that back in the 90s that you and your husband Mark took it upon yourselves to publish a book and use all of your own money to disperse the books through your own methods of distribution, just so that way the public can start to understand you as a whistleblower and what context were you portraying this information to the public. And at a time where a lot of people didn't understand, didn't talk about it, it was leaving you very vulnerable, I would imagine, because it's not every day that people make these allegations towards some of the highest level of government officials. Um, and in some cases, some people don't live long enough to even see that happen, because they don't want the information out. So that's where I feel that, God had a protection over you and Mark to in that period of time to be able to do that. So, do you feel like you would like to reflect back on those times where you were writing your first book, and what you were feeling when you were deciding to speak publicly and take it upon yourself to distribute your first series of books?
Well, MK Ultra was something nobody knew about back in 1990 when I began speaking out. And it was love for my daughter that compelled me to speak out, because my daughter had been not only abused on the highest levels of government in MK Ultra and trafficked as a child, but she was thrust into the corrupted so-called Child Protective Services system that I saw being set up and structured to further the human trafficking ops, because drug and human trafficking is funding a globalist agenda. And that globalist agenda is also the reason why child sex trafficking is the most lucrative business in the world. So speaking out on MK Ultra in 1990 was a challenge. Now, it's been over a year now that the MK Ultra documents have been totally declassified, unredacted. All the information is thousands and thousands of pages for anyone to research. And they can research Project Paperclip and understand. We imported Nazi and fascist scientists into the U.S. in the wake of World War II. And with them came that formula for MK Ultra mind control. So, speaking out on this has been a bit of a challenge. And it's a good thing I didn't need other people to validate my experience for me. I already knew my truth because I healed from
Yeah.
within myself and I was strong in who I am. So that part didn't matter. What mattered was trying to get the information, my testimony, which had been validated by clean members of law enforcement, intelligence, Secret Service. Um, every word in Transformation of America was my testimony for Congress that was censored under national security in 1995. Of course, Bill Clinton was president then, so of course it was censored. And so at
Was it
that time,
censored, or I'm sorry, Kathy, to interrupt you. Was it censored or was it deemed classified at that time, under the Clinton administration?
um, it, it was censored under national security. So I guess
Okay.
that's classified. I
Yeah.
know very recently there's just been an expose where people have tried to get records that's still classified. I don't know why, since MK Ultra has been declassified, but nevertheless. So Transformation of America was written from that, compiled from that testimony for Congress and released in book form. That's how that came to be. Mark and I did not have any money to make that happen. When he rescued my daughter and me out of the Washington, D.C. swamp, they just, with no due process, completely wiped out his bank accounts, took all of his money. It was near $3 million from his life's work. They just emptied it. They said they could take his life savings for saving a life. So, that satanic reversal thing. So we
Sure.
didn't have the money. Congress did that. And Congress, Democrats and Republicans, took the book and distributed it to every single member, to FBI, CIA, to every branch of watchdog organizations and everything else. And it was never meant for the public, but it got into the hands of the public anyway. So the information started to spread, and Mark and I continued to speak out across the nation and globally. And our journey through the corrupted system to help my daughter, what doors we were able to kick open, what we were able to accomplish against all odds, and how we survived is in access denied for reasons of national security. So Those books were written to document this journey. Now, when Trance was written, it read like some prophetic book or something because it said who was going to be placed in the office of president. Now it reads like a history book because we know, who was
Yeah.
placed in the office of president. And Access Denied reads like a roadmap to the roots of corruption within the child protective services system, the justice system, and how that all came about. So as people are taking back self-control, reclaiming um, constitutional values of freedom and justice for all, those books will be very helpful in being able to uproot the whole the whole
Yeah.
mess so
The
that we
whole
can
mess,
move
the whole
forward.
right. Your testimony, your story, but your education that you've brought to the public dating back to the 90s, like you said, is a roadmap for people today who are just getting caught up with how they were able to pull this off. What's the history behind it? Who was working together to implement it?
Yeah.
And that's why I really enjoyed rewatching your documentary Trance because it went into like Project Monarch. It goes into MK Naomi. These are all earlier operations that then led up to MK Ultra. And when we think back about, from 9/11 until now, all the things that have happened in our country, where the news cycles pick it up, for days or weeks on end because it's what they want us to see. It is a part of the programming and the trauma that they try to instill on the masses of people. And then you think about all the school shooters and you're like, how does this make sense where, this person went in and shot up a school, and you start to make these connections to who was in contact with those individuals. I mean, even the Charlie Kirk situation or the attempts upon President Trump's life and some of the people who've taken shots at him. I mean, they had connections to CIA, FBI. They had connections to, BlackRock, which are the money mechanisms behind some of these programs. So your stories are very dynamic, but they help glue a bunch of puzzle pieces together for people to see a bigger picture.
Yeah, knowledge is our defense against mind control. I think that's the most important thing is that people understand what mind control is. So they recognize it and then they have a defense against it. They go, oh, that's mind control. I'm not going to comply. So it's very helpful. The formula is the same, whether it's of an individual, a nation, a classroom, a military, or the world. Trauma is the basis of it. Himmler research showed there's no trauma more horrific on the human mind than sexual abuse of a child prior to age 5 while the brain is still forming, because that shuts down neuron pathways in the brain. Mind control shuts down neuron pathways. We want our brains firing. We want to be able to just shine that brilliance. We want to use what we have been blessed with. But mind control, the trauma, shuts down those neuron pathways, along with the other components of mind control, which are sleep, food, and water deprivation. When we understand that, we realize, oh, so people are working 9 to 5, 5 to 9, not getting enough sleep to put food on the table that has no nutritional value because it's been bioengineered and genetically altered to starve our brains, to keep us dumbed down, to keep our neuron pathways from firing. Our water's tainted with chemicals and fluoride. And all of that's very deliberate. It's all for creating a compliant society, one that shuts down our brilliance, our free thought. Without our free thought, we have no free will. Without free will, we have no soul expression. When we lose our soul expression, we lose discernment of truth, compassion for each other. We lose our ability to align with the divine within and gather the strength of the human spirit, the infinite power of love, live our life's purpose. We lose all of that with mind control. And that's what these perpetrators know. That's why they're imposing it. They want to align us with artificial intelligence, and they know that our wisdom outthinks their criminal minds every time. Our wisdom outthinks artificial intelligence. When we have our free thought, when we have our wisdom and our soul expression strength, the Spirit's our saving grace.
Right.
We win. It's game over. They lose and they know it. They're very dark, negative energy force. We're brilliant. We shine. And that light exposes the secrets in their darkness. Their darkness can't creep in on our light
Right.
unless we comply because we're frozen and frightened, scared, So that's how they use this mind control on the population. And that mind control is a sliding scale from the torturous robotic MK
Sure.
Ultra mind control I experienced on DARPA, NASA, and military installations to information control. Because
Right.
we all formulate our thoughts, opinions, and ultimately our actions based on what we know. And we need to know that knowledge base has been deliberately altered a long time to make us forget that we have all the power
Right.
and they only have as much power as we give them or let them steal.
That's
But
right.
we
That's
have the
right.
victory. We just got to remember that. Everyone everywhere needs to remember who they are and why they're here at this
That's right.
profound moment in time.
All right. Now, so back in the 90s when you were when you got these books to people within government who wanted to understand it and wanted to learn more about it, and then, it sounds like the book then got to the public. Um, were there any news outlets at all that wanted to cover this story, or were they like, whoa, we don't want to be involved in and sharing the story with our audiences? We're afraid of backlash. We're afraid of being taken off the air. Were you noticing a lot of that? And then moving forward till to now, I know I've heard like Alex Jones, which has a massive broadcast network through his show InfoWars. He brings you up and talks about you. And I think correct me if I'm wrong, you've been on InfoWars before to share your story. But are there any other with your story and your journey now? Are there any other large networks or writers wanting to cover this story in other like mainstream outlets?
Yeah, I have to think of that in the most literal term, cover the story. They're covering it up just like everybody else, and it's censored. So it's difficult getting information out in spite of censorship. But truth is like a divine energy of its own, and it can't be stopped. And it goes from person to person. They share it with each other, and the truth is getting out there anyway. So, in spite of national security being invoked, many people know what mind control is these days. Many people have their eyes wide open to the drug and human trafficking that's funding this globalist agenda. Many see that child sex trafficking has become the most lucrative business in the world because it's not only used for creating a compliant society, it's also used for blackmail operations because these perpetrators don't trust each other either, so they hold each other by the blackmail, so to speak.
Yeah,
So, we hear the Epstein Island and those files and the Diddy tapes and all like that. Those videos have been made all my life. I was used in them as a toddler, and it's part of my testimony. And those videos are kept in vaults where they can be used as blackmail. So, having access to that information would be a very powerful thread for unraveling this whole globalist agenda
yeah,
because it's got them all, and so we wisely use that information rather than just blasting it out to the public of, here's everybody that went to Epstein Island. Well, that's the victims, the
right.
victimizers, and people who became whistleblowers, all in the same group. And people don't
Yeah,
quite have the discernment yet for, just having a blanket information. So we need to
right.
examine things in a much more logical, brilliant way and realize so much of what we're seeing at this point in time is very elaborate efforts to undo a very corrupt system. And in the meantime, Matt, as you and I both know, the children can't wait. The children
Mm,
that have been trafficked, they need help now. They can't wait for the system to clean up. So, for all that's being done, it's up to us to start making that
yeah,
difference today, right now. And it's why it's so important to be able to embrace the truth, to know what mind control entails, and to know that no matter what anyone's experienced, they can reclaim their birthright to live the love they are, to live their life's purpose and live it with joy. These children that have been trafficked are going to have the most powerful testimony ever because the spirit's always protected throughout
Right.
the ordeal. And an amazing blessing that is such a treasure that we all need to remember when we have that capacity to synchronize with it, to align with it, to vibrationally embrace it. It's like, people say you must pray a lot to have survived. And it's like, well, my life is a prayer. I pray without ceasing. I never
Right.
stop. I stay aligned. Why would I do otherwise when I know the magnitude of how blessed we really are? And
Yeah.
it's such a joy and a celebration to know that. And it's a very important part
Yeah.
of the message that I just released in my latest book, Align with the Divine. And I'm so excited that book is finally out and released.
That's great. It's like you've fully embraced the victory of what you've embarked into through God's glory, and you resonate at that high frequency, that divine frequency, every moment of your consciousness, every single day. And so I see what you mean when you say like unlock your body and mind's potential of what it already is. You just have to step into what God's already created us to be. And to once you understand their satanic programming, um, you can find and unlock the code to break it all down and to break it away from you. And I just think, yeah, I just think your words have so much meaning and power in them. And I'm glad that you're able to put it in writing. And speaking of writing, some of the therapy that you found that when I was watching your documentary was handwriting in cursive, and how that was helping you to reverse the damage from the MK Ultra. Can you explain more elaborate more on that?
Yeah, the very act of moving a pen activates the logic, critical analysis part of the brain because it requires that part of the brain to move a pen or a crayon or, I
Sure.
mean,
Paintbrush
drawing
or
does it too.
yeah,
Yeah, it's so important. So it activates the logic part of the brain, and it takes emotionally incomprehensible trauma that's been repressed, where the neuron pathways shut down. I said mind control shuts down neuron pathways. We want to open them. So it takes that emotionally incomprehensible trauma, shifts it over to logic, where it's written out on paper, consciously seen and dealt with, and all of a sudden healing happens psychiatrically, psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, everything all at once with this one simple little brain trick. Writing by hand is so important. That's when what we need to understand. That's why it was taken out of the school system when
hmm
global education went in, which is also called Common Core. They put
right,
computers in. Typing does not do the same thing. Twiddling
right.
thumbs on a cell phone doesn't do the same thing. Moving that pen is what activates that part of the brain. So if we get writing by hand back in the school system, we'll stop the indoctrination of children.
Wow.
I encourage everyone everywhere. Pick up a pen and paper, write out your fear, write out your trauma, write out
Right.
your grief, your guilt, anything that's immobilizing you, write it out. And then add a solution. Because when you add a solution and have to think of a solution, and I spell it SOUL, solution, you're forcing the brain to fire in new ways again. So you get more neuron pathways to fire. And all of that helps to lift us above the storm, so to speak, so we get a clear view forward. It's a um, very easy to self-apply brain hack that Mark Phillips taught me when he lifted my daughter and me out of the Washington, D.C. human trafficking swamp in 1988. And that was one of
Great.
the keys he handed me was write it out.
So yeah, did Mark learn that from the work that he was in? Because I know that he had worked in multiple different agencies and had worked with people that were maybe spies or worked overseas and had their own trauma, and maybe they worked for the U.S. government or military and needed their own therapy. Is that where he learned that tactic?
He learned from working the highest levels of intelligence, mind sciences, and he was working to preserve the sanctity of free thought. And he knew that the military, for example, was forbidden from writing out their experiences. You know, it's like, why? And it's
Right,
because it's a birthright to healing. It's a way to keep our brains firing properly.
right,
And so he saw all that. He saw how our constitutional values were being sold out to the globalist agenda. He knew that the DARPA plan for aligning us with AI required that we be rid of our ability to align with the divine, because that's where our wisdom is, that's where our victory is. And so that's being blocked off with mind control. And he saw that. So he knew from his research, what I knew from inside experience, that without free thought, there's no free will and no soul expression and strength of spirit. And in that regard, mind control is a spiritual warfare. So he was just determined to make a positive difference. As a spook, he wore every hat: FBI, CIA, NSA, Secret Service. So he was in all these key places wherever he needed to be. And what he witnessed and saw was appalling, especially when he saw little children being
mm,
taken in and out of the White House. And
mm,
that was when he decided he was going to do something about it and lifted Kelly and me right out of that Washington D.C. swamp. What a hero to us all, and
yeah,
how amazing that he saw our birthright information on mind brain function suppressed under national security ever since the 1947 National Security Act went into place after we imported the Nazi and fascist scientists into the U.S. with Project Paperclip. So he saw that was deliberately withheld from people for generations, and people forgot. They started relying on big pharma, big tech, and big government. When in fact, we have been blessed with so much capability and capacity within us all along. So um, the realization we need to reclaim our free thought in order to access our strength of spirit and claim our victory. It's our key to um, a spiritual victory and spiritual alignment and spiritual celebration. I'm so grateful that he chose to rescue my daughter and me. I live in a constant state of gratitude. I'm always grateful because life is just full of miracles, and I'm so
right,
blessed to even have survived to see them.
right,
Um, I'm so honored. I'm so blessed. I'm just
yeah,
so grateful. And I think being in a state of gratitude is a higher vibration in itself that allows us
right.
to continue to see the miracles that
That's
life
right.
is.
Yeah, thank God for Mr. Mark Phillips, because you called him the title of a spook, meaning that he can operate in many different departments within U.S.
Hmm.
government, that he had his integrity, his moral values, his moral compass, and that he wasn't compromised like they would often do to many people who had those clearances or had those abilities to be in those meetings. Thank God that God protected him and kept him pure and honest and full of integrity to even see all of this play out so then he can help you escape the slavery and your daughter. So I thank God for him. I mean, that's really like you think of angels, like he
Yeah.
really fits the mold of an angel, right?
Yeah, his
So,
integrity was absolutely impeccable, and he was in places where they would want him to be part of this society or this secret whatever, and and he saw the children, and he was so appalled at what was done, and he knew he was going to have to make a difference. Like he was born to live that life's purpose, to be
yeah,
able to expose what was going on with uh, no desire in any way whatsoever to comply with it. I think when most of us think of being in that situation, we're like, what?
Right.
No way.
Right.
But some can be compromised to it.
Yeah.
And Mark always said, the places where he was, if people had had cell phones back then and cameras, they would have had him in the in some horrible place,
Yeah.
and and him not being there. So we got to understand that before we're making snap judgments, that you have to be in key places to gain insight into exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
I think that definitely applies to President Trump. People need to consider that aspect on
Yeah.
his circumstance too.
Right.
If he's the one blowing the whistle on it all, he's the one who's been showing everybody that there's a swamp, that drug and human trafficking are funding a globalist agenda, that mind control exists. I mean, so much truth has
Yeah.
come to light. And when truth comes to light, it's because truth is being told rather than covered up.
That's right.
So, there's a lot to be said for actions,
Yeah.
and people's snap judgments need to, slow down and start thinking things through and reevaluating our own perceptions first before we start judging everyone else.
That's right. You bring up a great point, Kathy. I know over the last few months, especially since September 10th in Utah with the Charlie Kirk situation, that a lot of division has happened, but it's also brought a lot of eyes upon the different relationships between President Trump, his current administration, who's in his cabinet,
Yeah,
who's working the DOJ, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, and then the relationship with Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israeli intelligence, and certain things. So there's been a lot of information warfare, spiritual warfare going on at We the People. But what I have been able to pull away from all of that mess and all of that deception and the information warfare is that this is from my point of view, it's a military operation. I think that we're seeing play out for those who understand it and can see it, where he is able to kind of show us who the players are so we can do our own digging and kind of see what their past history is, who they've worked for. And also, if you kind of simplify it, let's say we have a Justice Department who's willing to apprehend and arrest all of those who have done crimes against humanity, crimes against children, multiple dark money operations. Who is going to prosecute those cases?
right, right, right,
Because the globalists have inserted their own judges, their own district attorneys, they use lawfare as their weaponry. So even if we were to arrest all of those who've participated with Epstein or all of those that participated with Diddy and expose all of their connections and the cartel or the syndicate, we don't have a justice system at this point that's going to be able in a civil court setting handle all of those cases because civil court cases can go on for months or years. And with the amount of people involved, it's like, how else are we going to handle that operation? So I feel that like it has to be at some point, it has to fall within jurisdiction of the military tribunals or military courts. Um, but I just know that, that the psychological operation is very real and it is dividing MAGA and um maybe it's supposed to happen this way where we question the allies of President Trump, maybe even question President Trump at times. But
mhm,
for me, I feel that we saw this in his first term that he parades people in front of us and puts them on microphones for them to talk and say what they're going to say. But then, like when COVID happened, I had no clue who people like Anthony Fauci was until COVID. And then all of a sudden, now I'm able to understand who this guy was and how he was related to the AIDS situation and made things in laboratories that were actually depopulating the earth. So, when it comes to the big networks of people who've been using children in their operations, I think it's not as easy as go out and just arrest them because they probably have such a vast network where we have to get the guys in the top, in the middle, and in the bottom of the pyramid. And it's going to take more time to do this kind of an operation because they probably have fail safes and if we're going to do it, we have to do it right. And
I
for those who
agree.
are awake, we have to be more patient. We have to be more patient with what's going on because any civilized, God-fearing human, once they find out about this, yes, they want justice right away, but we have to understand that there's two tiers of justice, right?
Yeah, well, I've been waiting for justice my whole life.
I
Um,
know you
and,
have.
and and I'm seeing it. The ultimate justice, a positive change through public awareness.
Right,
That is the ultimate justice. It's up to us. It's up to each and every one of us to reestablish and secure our moral compass so that we
right,
can make sound judgments. We don't have a justice system to prosecute these people through. We need to start discerning some things for ourselves. And if um, MAGA is dividing, then people are waking up to realize it's up to us. It's up to each and every one of us.
right,
When Mark was talking with other intelligence people back when on how to unravel the New World Order, it was absolutely determined that no matter if you put a clean person in a position of power like a President Trump, it doesn't clean everything else up. So it's going to take a great awakening. It's going to take an evolution of humanity to wake up to truth, to
right,
embrace their own strength of spirit, to have their own discernment and their own moral compass back. We've got to start researching things. People have asked me repeatedly, well, what about Erica Kirk? And it's like it's not for me to make that judgment. It's up to everyone to know what to look for and
hmm
start discerning truth for themselves.
Yeah, the court
So
of public opinion. Right,
yeah, well, if they see there's a problem for her, help her.
right,
She can heal. Everybody can heal.
right,
If there's why assassinations occur is to take someone out who's not complying with the globalist agenda.
mhm,
And so who's in place? Are they complying with the globalist agenda? Things need to be examined and looked at with mind control factored into the equation because you're
right,
so right. This is a giant psychological warfare. And
right.
speaking of psychological warfare, I looked into the board of directors of Turning Point USA and found General Valey there, who wrote the book Mind War with Michael Aquino, who's the satanic, horrific founder of the occult temple of Set, my primary MK Ultra mind control programmer, absolute brutal Satanist who has been caught raping children in Presidio and everything else. Mind War was using trauma to manipulate the minds of the population. Well, what was Charlie Kirk accomplishing? He was accomplishing opening minds of conservative youth. Um, and if that was happening, then what better way to shut those minds down than with the trauma of watching the assassination? So that was used very deliberately to traumatize the youth. And I wanted so much just to have voice to every one of them who witnessed it. And then I realized really the whole population has witnessed it now, to pick up a pen and paper and write it out.
Yeah,
Write out what we know, write out what we question,
right,
write out what we research, because it's right there for
right.
anybody to see
Sure.
that the guy who wrote Mind Wars on a board of directors, what?
Yeah,
Friend
right,
of a Satanist?
right,
What?
right.
That needs to be questioned.
Yeah. So infiltration can happen into any
Yes.
organization over time. And like you said, like certain people willingly, knowingly participate with their globalist agenda, and some others unwillingly participate because they either have been MK Ultra'd and have trigger words or certain traumas or a handler that threatens them if they don't comply or act a certain way and perform a certain duty, then bad will happen to them or their families. So
Yeah.
there's different layers to that, and I think it's not as turnkey as people think, and as simple to explain as people might think. So
Yeah, especially when you consider the whole global population experience. They had the experience with mind control masked as a virus unleashed on the global population in 2020. That was absolutely horrific. And media's repetitive narrative programmed people. How many times did you hear? Mask up, social distance, get the injection.
right,
And these little children were told grandma's going to die if they don't comply. And
right,
that's an old satanic trick right there.
it
You know,
is
and it was horrible what was done, but everyone got a taste of what mind control is. Now we need to understand what Mark taught me when I told him when I was remember I said I can't live with myself after what I was forced to do under mind control. He said you're not responsible for what you're programmed to do. Your
right.
abusers are, and they need to be held accountable for those actions.
That's right,
But now that you are aware, you are responsible for all your actions going forward. And
right,
if everyone who complied with the mind control masters of virus that are regretting all of that and just, they need to know that they're not responsible, their abusers are. We need to see some justice. We got to get this system fixed so we can see
right,
some justice.
right,
And now that they're aware, they're responsible for all their actions going forward. If they're responsible with the awareness of what not to comply with and what to do when trauma occurs, pick up a pen and paper, then they can easily move forward without succumbing to mind control anymore. I certainly didn't comply with mind control masters of virus. I recognized it instantly. That's what we gain that knowledge. That's our defense against mind control. We evolve with that knowledge so that we don't comply anymore. And when we have our free thought, free will, we have our strength of spirit, we have our moral compass, we have it all. We have the victory, so it's right there. We're right on the edge of this giant quantum leap into what is really ultimately a spiritual evolution, and
that's
I
right.
think it's such an exciting time to be alive, but we
It
have to
is.
acknowledge where we've been first in order to know where we're going.
That's right. Yeah, we have to understand what the problems were and the things that we've all gone through as people, identify them, and then we can know how we can heal from those traumas and help each other understand what's happened. And let me pull up your website because I do want to share with the audience that trilogy of books because I think that people are going to be interested in where they can find those. Let me go ahead and share screen one moment. See here. So right here, I'm on Cathy's website, trance-formation.com. And if you would like to visit her website to understand more of her story, gather more of her media, her documentary, you can also find on the website. And then also her book release. She has her newest book, Aligned with the Divine. And you can order the book here through Amazon or ebook on Kindle. You can also go ahead and just jump right into the trilogy and get all three books for
Yes, I sign them all from my website,
oh, that's awesome.
and I fill the orders myself, and that's on trance-formation.com. I do that. All my books are on Audible. I read every one of them myself too. So I encourage people to listen that. But I've read them to preserve the integrity of information.
And these books, you guys, these are a must have for your collections, for gifts, for people who are just awakening. There the lots of treasure trove of information. There's a lot of names named of people that a lot of us maybe voted for in elections. And Cathy has all the receipts and information to back up all the allegations and information. It's all can be sourced and it's all great information for the public to be able to understand. So I really wanted to share your website today and how people can get a hold of your books, Cathy. And
Thank you.
it's
Yeah.
just so amazing to revisit this information with you, to hear a different side of things from you and to really understand who you are and what makes you so special. So,
Oh, I really appreciate it. On my website too, you'll notice the events pull down,
oh
and
yeah.
it's got where I'm going to be speaking, the different places.
Yeah, and I encourage folks to check out the events page on her website. It looks like she's going to be so the ARC training is going to be in Huntsville, Alabama. You can click there to understand what you can learn from that training and be a part of that and sign up. It looks like she's going to be out in Eastbourne, United Kingdom, in the UK at an event. So you can also so you're going global. You're going worldwide with this
Oh,
information.
absolutely.
You have an
Absolutely.
event here in Nashville in the fall in October of this year, so people can really plug into all these amazing events, and you're basically like a vessel bringing people into the realm to where they can not
Yeah.
only just
Down
understand what's
just a
been
little
going
further,
on.
I want
Hmm.
if you go down a little bit further,
Sure.
there's an event coming on very soon. This one, Awake and Bold. People I met, again, Rev 17. We're carrying forward to educate the people. Mary Flynn O'Neill's going to be there, and it's all to help the children. So, you
Yeah,
know, that spark just keeps going,
it
So
is.
there we are,
It's
Yeah.
so
So I'm looking
amazing.
forward to that too.
So
Yeah.
great. This is all great news.
Yeah.
This makes me excited for 2026 for the public to
I am.
to reclaim their power, and help children that
Yep.
maybe they would have never had the opportunity to do it. But now it's like, look, there's a call to action. There's a need that needs to be met, and parents and grandparents can all get involved in their own capacity. So that's
Yep.
wonderful.
Yep.
So Cathy O'Brien,
Excellent.
it's always great seeing your face and hearing your voice. I think about you and I pray for you all the time, and I'm just so happy that we have this friendship. And I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity. It's great talking with you.
Well, I can't wait to see you again on the next episode of the Ultra MK podcast, where together we are reversing the narrative. We'll talk to you soon, Cathy.